Well, that is probably a good place to start. So good morning. My name is Maren Mahoney. I'm a senior instructor here at Sunset Learning. And this session is about practical BAT, things you can use every day. The series of sessions this week, I should say, are all about practical uses for the bulk administration tool in Call Manager. When I'm teaching classes, I get questions about this a lot, which is why I was thinking about doing this series. And actually, I just gave this webinar for Cisco not too long ago. It was back in January, which was really quite well received. So my company asked me to do it again for you nice folks. So the first session we're going to have right now is going to cover a pair of topics. Well, really just sort of one topic, but extended. And that is how do I use the bulk administration tool? And for bulk edits, like, I did a class in New York City. And there was a gentleman who, it was his job, like they needed to check one checkbox or make one change on 137 devices. And it was his job to go in one by one and make the change. And I showed him how to do bulk edits using the bulk administration tool, and it saved him stupid numbers of hours of his day. And he was really, really happy. So we're going to look at the bulk administration tool. Bulk edit utility allows me to change a set of objects all at once. And you can use a query to make that set of changes. You could search for phones where the phone model is this, or you could search for directory numbers where the partition is that, or I could look for user accounts where the last name starts with this. I mean, there's all sorts of different kinds of queries you can use. You can change one thing at a time. You could also change multiple things. And if the query itself doesn't work for you, you can use a custom file to do your query. And I'll talk more about that because we're going to do that exact thing as part 2 of this session. And one of the nice things in this bulk edit feature is I can also do an apply config or a reset if I need to. And especially if you need to do a reset, which is going to reboot your phones, you can schedule a bulk edit, just like any other BAT job, to run later. So you can have it run in the middle of the night. Now, the other part of the bulk edit is multi-argument queries. So for instance, maybe I do need to change, a checkbox or a field on a bunch of, 8845 phones, but only the ones in a certain device pool. Or I need to change a bunch of directory numbers that have a particular partition, but only ones that have a certain voicemail profile. So using multi-argument queries to allow me to refine my search. That way I have to do as few jobs as possible. Right, and you can do that in more than just BAT. Maybe you're just looking at phones. You go to device phone find, and you have a set of phones that you need to look for, and using a multi-argument query allowing you to refine that search. And I'll show you that. Now, the other half of this, and this has to do with this custom file I was just mentioning. What is that about? Well, what if there is no query combination available for the thing that you want to do? And the example we're going to do in our lab example here today is I need to locate all of the phones where the directory number is in the lobby partition. And I need to make sure that the extension mobility checkbox is unchecked. What we're going to find is that this is a phone level item, but I need to do a search based on the DN, and there is no combination that allows me to find that. So how can I create a list of MAC addresses of objects that I want to change based on some other criteria? And what we're going to do is create a custom file. And that custom file, we are going to use the generate phone reports. There's another thing we're going to look at today. We're going to look at bulk edit, multi-argument queries, custom files, and the generate reports feature. Very, very handy, by the way. I think you'll like it once you see it. And that will allow us to get the list of objects that we want to change. All right, so here we go. Let's go give this a try. Now, I have a call manager up. Oops, there we are. I have a call manager up. This is a 12.5 system, but anything that I'm showing you today has been available forever. So if you're using, 11 or 10 or 9 or even 8, everything I'm showing you is still valid. So let's start with just how does the bulk edit feature work? I'm going to go to the bulk administration tool, and I'm going to go to phones. And I want you to notice that in addition to doing things like updating or validating phones or inserting phones, here's update phones. This is the bulk edit feature, and that's for phones. I also have update lines. This allows me to do bulk edits on directory numbers. And just to show you, there is also a bulk edit feature for users as well. So all the things I'm showing you there. Oh, and for those of you who use extension mobility, if I look at device profiles, guess what? There is update device profile, so update extension mobility profiles. So there's lots of these sort of updates, bulk edit things in the bulk administration tool. So let's look at phones. So I'm going to go to phones, update phones, query. And then I have to wait a moment because this is running a little slow this morning for me. I feel like I should be doing hand puppets while that's coming up. There we go. So here we go. Now, with the bulk edit feature, step 1 is to locate the list of objects that you want to change. And this is where our queries come in. So find phones where, and you've probably seen this. If you've worked in Call Manager at all, you'll know that you have these find features, right? So here we go, device name, directory number, device pool. Let's say that I would like to use device type, and I want to say device type contains 8845. I want to just go find my 8845 phones, and I can do find. And here are all of the 8845 phones in my system. Now, what about the multi-argument query? What if I want to refine this a little bit more? I've got these phones here, but gee, I only want to find ones that are in a particular device pool. So here's where multi-argument comes in. Notice over here that I have my little plus and my little minus. If I click plus, I can put in some other piece of criteria. And my example might be my device pool begins with M for Minneapolis. I have a Minneapolis device pool. And now I have a smaller list, and you can see my Minneapolis device pool. Now, this is 2 different criteria, but I could say, let's say device type contains 8845 and, and device type contains 8811. Now, for those of you who are paying attention, you're thinking to yourself, well, how can a device type be both an 8845 and an 8811, right? You can't. And sure enough, if I click find here, I'm going to get no results. That's because I'm using the AND operation. It's asking me to have both of these criteria true at the same time, and they can't. So what I can do is change instead this to OR. And now I have the 8811s and the 8845s. With this, I could still add another piece of criteria and further refine things, but it starts getting a little messy. One of the things I've discovered is that while it looks like I can combine ands and ors, like, hey, what about all 8845s and 8811s, but in this device pool, right? It doesn't seem to work very well. I haven't quite figured out that combination. But here we go. So here's all of these. Now, what are we going to do with this? Well, once I have my list of objects that I would like to change, I'm going to click Next. And this allows me to set up the bulk edit itself. So this first checkbox here, way off to the left, says, I would like to change this field. Now, those phones all have maybe different device pools, different calling search spaces, different phone button templates. I only want to change certain things. If I check a box, then I'm saying that I would like to change that field. Now, if I check a box, I do have to make a selection here. So let's say that what I'd like to do with all of these is I would like to, make it scroll down here. I'm going to say that I would like to, we're going to be using the extension mobility checkbox later. So I would like to use the extension mobility checkbox. I want to check the box. This first checkbox says, I would like to change this field here. And the second checkbox here is, what would I like to change the status of that checkbox to? By checking both of these, what I'm saying is I would like to change the status of the checkbox to checked for all of these. If I was doing something like a drop-down, so let me uncheck, actually, let me leave that. What if I was going to do something like a drop-down list? Let's say I'm going to change the device calling search space. Where is that? Here we are. If I was going to do change calling search space, then I would have to pick something from the list. And notice that I actually don't have to. If I check the checkbox for calling search space and I left this at none, I'm saying, hey, would you change the calling search space on all these devices? And the calling search space I would like to change it to is the none calling search space. Whatever I have in that field, once I've checked that box, that's what it's going to get changed to. So do be cautious about things like that. Don't inadvertently check boxes you don't mean to. Similarly, for the extension mobility, it was a checkbox. I want to change the status of the checkbox. For the calling search space, it's a drop-down list. I'm going to select from the list and make that change. What about text fields? What happens if I check the checkbox for description? Well, anything I put here is going to change the description of all of those devices. Now, right now, if I leave it blank, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to change all the descriptions, and I'm going to change it to blank. So again, be cautious about what you're doing. Make sure that you have the right set of devices and that you're only checking those checkboxes for I want to change this field, that first checkbox, only for things that you want to do. So for us, the only change we're making is checking the extension mobility checkbox here. Now, I happen to know, because I've been working with this system for a while, that checking the extension mobility checkbox requires a restart or a reset of the phone. Now, if you're not aware, the difference between reset, restart, and apply config is the following. Reset the phone is a full reboot. It goes all the way back, it reloads the operating system, it goes back and gets a new, redoes CDP, redoes DHCP, et cetera, et cetera. A restart goes back and it does not go back to the operating system, but it does go back to your DHCP and CDP conversations. So it's not a full CDP. So it doesn't do a full reboot, so it takes a little bit less time. Apply config, though, when you click save and you make a change on a page, look at, say what it says, oh, you must apply config for this change to take effect, right? Apply config tells the phone, the only thing it does is it goes back to the TFTP server and says, hey, could you re-download my config file, please? And it applies it. So of these, the apply config is the least intrusive. The phone will be offline for a couple of seconds. It really doesn't take long at all. The restart, maybe 15, 20 seconds. The full reset, 30 to 40 seconds, depending on the speed of your network and the speed of your phones and all that. So there really is a difference between all of these. Now, the only other thing I'll say about that, and I'm sorry, I seem to have gotten a little bit off topic, is does this mean this is going to kick people off phone calls? Reset will. If I tell a phone to reset, it's going to do it right now. If I tell a phone to restart, it will wait for the phone to be idle for 5 minutes. So if you are on a phone call and I tell your phone to restart, it will not kick you off a phone call. It will wait for you to be done with your phone call. And you think to yourself, oh, well, hang up the phone, I have to make another call. It will wait for that phone to be idle for 5 minutes before it's going to do a reboot. So that's the difference there. Now, the reason I mention that is because I happen to know that with the extension mobility checkbox, I do have to do an apply config in order to make this take effect. And where I'm going with this is, in addition to making the change, I can also tell Call Manager to take the action to implement the change once the change is complete. So here I am making the change for the bulk administration tool to change the extension mobility checkbox, and I'm telling it to do an apply config afterwards. Now I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. You'll notice here at the top there's a submit button. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom instead. And I still have a submit button, but here is why I'm going to scroll to the bottom. Do I want to run this job immediately, or do I want to run it later? You'll notice that run later is the default. If I leave it at run later, I'll need to go into the bulk administration job scheduler to tell it when to run. But if I run it immediately, it will do exactly that. So I often, at least in my labs, I go in and I tell it to run immediately, and then I click submit, and off the job goes. Well then, let's go see the status of our job. We're going to go into the job scheduler and go look as soon as this decides to come back. All right. Add successful, job request submitted. See the job scheduler to see the status of my job. And well, this is running super slow today. Thank you for your patience. Here's my job ID. It says it is still in the process of doing the job itself. So I'm going to click find again, and we're going to sort of have to wait until it says, there we go, it says completed. I click on the job, and it's going to tell me a couple of things. First of all, it's going to, oops, sorry about that. It's going to tell me how many records got processed. I had 30 in my query, 30 records were processed, that's awesome. Number of records failed, total number of records. If any of the records that I tried to alter didn't work for some reason, it would tell me here. Like, for instance, there are certain phones that don't have an extension mobility checkbox. It doesn't support extension mobility. And so for those phones, there is no extension mobility checkbox that would be listed under as a failed record. If I wanted to see the status of the job, if it had said that there was some kind of a failed record, I could look at the log file and it would tell me. Now this is saying obviously no errors, but there we go. This is how I would see if there was an error, what its malfunction was. So that is the bulk administration tool bulk edit feature, and that is also using a multi-argument query to refine a search. The last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to have you guys ask questions. So if you have any questions, please put them in chat or just shout it out if you have audio. I want to just show you that multi-argument query is available in more places. I'm going to look at phones, but it's available in user accounts and device pools and directory numbers and all sorts of things. And here we go. Find phones where, and if I click just find, I'm going to get all of my phones. But I could say, well, gee, I only want to see, again, let's say device type contains 8845. And again, I get just my 20 phones that have that, where that's true. And let's say I also only want to see the ones where the device pool begins with M. And there we go. So it's more than just the bulk edit feature. This multi-argument query business is available elsewhere in Call Manager and can really help you in your day-to-day administration. So, so far so good. We're done with that first part. Does anybody have any questions, anything they'd like to see again? Let me see if I've got any chats. I do. Let's see. Back in Call Manager 7, the phone report used to have a phone model field. You're talking about the generate phone reports? In Call Manager, I'm not sure. Well, you know what? Let's go take a look. So, well, you know what? We're going to do a generate phone reports right now, so let's go take a look and see if that's true. So hold on to that thought, Bill. Give me just, anybody else have any questions? And I'm going to talk to exactly what you're asking, Bill. Anybody else have any questions? Again, audio or via chat? Okay. Well, then let's go address Bill's question and go look at the generate phone reports. So, custom files. If there is no query that allows us to generate a single job with everything, or if I have so many different weird criteria that I need to sort and search or something to make all of this work. So how can I do this? Well, I can use a custom file. And a custom file is going to be just a list of. In the case of phones, it will be a MAC address or device name. So if I have, CSF devices, they have a name as opposed to a MAC address, or just a MAC address, so list of MACs. For directory numbers, I need directory number and partition. I need both of those. And for users, I just need the user ID. So just a list. And that will allow me to make the change. It gives me the set of objects I'm going to change. To generate this list, generate phone reports is how we're going to do it. And Bill, if generate phone reports doesn't do it for you, then you can also do a raw export of data, which I will show you, and you can use that to generate your list. So let's give this a try. And again, our example is going to be, we just checked the extensionability checkbox in a bunch of phones, and I said, oh crap, I need to uncheck that on my lobby phones, because my lobby phones, I don't want that hosting an extension mobility profile, so I want to uncheck it. But if I go into the bulk administration tool, update phones, I can do a search on directory number. It does allow me to do that, but not partition. Let me go get rid of this, clear filter. I can look at directory number, but you'll notice that partition is not here, and I want to do it by partition. So how do I get a list of phones where the directory number on that phone is in a particular partition? Bulk administration tool, phones, generate phone reports. Now, this allows you to extract a certain set of information out, about your phones, anything. Somebody wants to do a printed corporate directory. And so they say, well, hey, can I get a list of all of the names of people and maybe their location and their directory number, right? And so whatever kind of sort of set of information that you would like to extract out of your database, generate phone reports. And again, this is available for user accounts, directory numbers, and user device profiles as well. So generate phone reports. Probably should have clicked on that and then talked. All right, here we go. So Bill, here you go. Device type is right there. So you can use device type. That's phone model. And maybe they changed the name of the field in 7. 7's so long ago. If they called it model back then, it's just device type now. Does that help? Hopefully. Not really. Okay, so so then what are you trying to do? You're trying to find all phones and find the phone model of all the phones? Okay. All right, well, let's see if you had another comment about that here. All right, well, let's see what we can do. So step 1, I'm going to find all of my phones. I'm just going to look for all of my phones. I only happen to have 30 phones, but I'm going to look for them all. Is a field in the list of output fields. Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Okay, hold on to that thought. Let me see if I can figure that out. So find phones where. Now, for a query like this, again, we're trying to find the list of MAC addresses for the phones where the directory number is in the lobby partition. I can only get in any particular one of these sorts of queries up to 1,000 matches. In another one of these sessions, I think it's tomorrow, I'm going to show you how to use the import-export feature of Call Manager, again, to either extract data or to create things like custom fields for doing mass edits. All right, so I'm going to go find all my phones. And once it brings up the list of phones and I click next, what I'm going to see is a list of all of the possible fields, and it's going to allow me to extract that set of information about those. So I'm going to go click next. And my report, I'm going to call this lobby phones. Device fields. Well, certainly I'm going to want device name because device name is going to be my MAC address. So let me go get device name. And while I'm here, I'm going to go get description because I want to make sure I have the right set of phones. And then to Bill's question, let's see. Right, that's what I'm looking for right now, Bill. So to Bill's question, it's like, well, what about device type? Yeah, I never noticed that before. That is gone, isn't it? So you can't run a report where it shows you the type of phone. How interesting. Huh. Well, at which point you would have to use, we don't have device type? No, we don't. You'd have to use the export feature of the bulk administration tool. Now, I'm going to be doing a formal session on this. Again, I think it's tomorrow. Import export. Yeah, tomorrow at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern Time. But Bill, if you want to hang out after this session is over, and I'll just show you real quick how to do that, and we can look at that. Okay. All right. Anyway, so I want device name because this is the thing I actually want. I want that list of MAC addresses. I want that list of device names. And I'm using description to also make sure I understand that I have the right phones. I don't want to, inadvertently do the wrong phones. Now, notice that I have to have at least one device field and I have to have at least one directory number field. Well, gee, what fields do I want? Well, certainly I'm going to want directory number. Oops, one too many places. There we go. And then the other field I want, remember what I want to search on is partition. So I'm going to go down, it's called route partition in this particular list. Let me go find that. Or maybe it's called route partition in the other place. Oh, yes, sure enough. Different names of fields in different places, which, thanks Cisco. Right, so here we go. So here are the fields that we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to run this job immediately. Generate phone reports, partition, submit. I don't know if you noticed, I went by it pretty fast. I'm gonna let that generate its thing. Let me do next real quick and just show you something. In addition to device level fields and line level fields, I can also export intercom related stuff. And I can also have it show me the list of all of the speed dials on a particular phone, all of the IP phone services these particular set of devices are registered to. So I can get that set of information if that's what you need to search on. So this is another way to do that kind of thing. All right, here we go. Bulk administration tool, job scheduler. There we go. And here's the job I just ran. It's still processing. Let's give it a sec. I didn't think that query would be that hard. All right, well, tell you what, while that's cooking, let me answer Bill's question. So, Bill, you need to find a particular list of MAC addresses where the device types are a certain device type. As we've noted, you can't do that with generate phone reports. How you'd want to do that, I'm going to go into a lot more detail when I do the session tomorrow afternoon, so I'm just going to show you real quick right now. Bulk administration tool, import, export, export. The export feature of the bulk administration tool allows you to export any table in your database. And the specific one you're going to be looking for is your phones. This is going to get every single phone in your cluster. Give it a name. Maybe I'm going to call it all phones. Right? Now, what you're going to get is a really large CSV file that has every single phone in your system. You can use Excel's filter feature to filter and say, well, when this column, the device type column, is this value, only show me those. And there's your list of MAC addresses. So that's how you can do that. And again, I'll go into a lot more detail tomorrow, but that's how I would do the thing you're looking for. And if you need to generate a set of information, oops, wrong spot, sorry. And if you need to generate a set of information about those phones, gee, what do you know? You have every single field possible. All right, let's see if our job is done. I hope that helps, Bill. Again, if you have additional questions, hang out after and we can see what we can do. All right, oh, good, seems like you're happy. All right, oh, it's still processing, wow. I didn't think that would be that arduous oh, no, that's right. This is the other export that I just did. Here's the job that's completed. And I can see it successfully exported 40 records. Here's my log file. So again, if I had any errors, it would tell me. And here's the report file name. So I can look at it here. This would just show it to me in a GUI. Did it take? Yeah, I wouldn't be looking at it that way anyway. Where you want to go get this file now is bulk administration tool, upload, download files. Excuse me, anything you upload is listed here. Anything you're going to download is listed here. Any reports you run, any exports you generate. Once we do that phones export, that will show up here too. Okay, so lobby phones. I'm going to download this. Put it on my desktop. And here's my file. Now, this is a CSV file. I've opened it up in Notepad. Notice that my carriage returns don't work properly. If you are not already working with Notepad++, I highly encourage you to go get that piece of software. It is an amazing piece of software, not just to work with these sorts of files, but if you are ever looking at call manager trace files, Notepad++ is your best friend. With Notepad++, I can see that I've got lists here. Now, what I want to do is I want to find where I have lobby partition here. So I can't really work with this raw text file. What I can do is open this in Excel. And let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to go into Excel. Probably should put a shortcut on my desktop. There we are. And I'm going to open from my desktop all files. And I'm going to go get my lobby phones file. Now it's noting that this is not a straight up Excel file. We're saying it's going to be delimited. What is it delimited with? It's not delimited with tabs, it's delimited with commas. Gee, I can see my preview, that looks nice and tidy. And there we go. Okay, well now what? I can't just sort on column D because what I need to do is find all the phones where the partition contains the word lobby. So I can't just sort on that field. This is where Excel skills come into play. I'm going to select my data and I'm going to sort and filter. I would like to do a filter. And what I'd like to do is filter on this. And what I would like to do is go get everything that is lobby. There's other ways to accomplish what I'm doing, but here we go. I just want a list where this first column has these values. And ta-da. Now, what's important about this is not that it's the lobby partition. What we're trying to get is this, remember. We need to find the list of MAC addresses where the partition on the directory number is in the lobby partition. So this is where we're going with all of this. This is the list of objects where I need to uncheck the extension mobility checkbox. So I'm going to copy this data out, and I'm just going to put it in a notepad file, well, Notepad++ because I like that. And there's my list. I'm going to call this Save As, and I'm going to call this Lobby Phones Only. So what do I do with this? Now, remember that what this is doing is replacing our query. There was no way for us to do a bulk edit on the phones directly. We couldn't find a query to match our devices. So what we're doing here is creating that custom file, that list of MAC addresses that should be used with a bulk edit. So let's do this now. I'm going to upload the file. Oh, I was right there. Upload the file. I'm going to add new. And what I'm uploading is my lobby phones only. So that's just my list. And what am I doing with this file? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be editing users. I'm editing phones, right? And what I'm specifically doing is I'm saying update phones custom file. I'm specifically saying, hey, I've got a custom file, a list that I'd like to use to update a set of phones. If you're not sure what to choose in those fields, if you're ever working with the bulk administration tool, there is a BAT admin guide that can help talk you through that. When in doubt, you can always throw a question out on the Cisco support forums and people like me will help you find that. Okay, so let's do our job. Phones, update phones, but now I'm updating phones via a custom file rather than a query. It's going to ask me what my custom file is. Find. And lo and behold, here's my list of MAC addresses. Now it just, all I had in that list was the MAC addresses. It brought the rest of this information in. But that's the list of phones. Next. Now I can use the bulk edit feature the way I normally need to. So I'm going to do an apply config because I said I had to do that after unchecking the extension mobility checkbox. And I'm going to say, I would like to change this field. I would like to change it to the status of unchecked. And then let's run our job. And so if you recall, the first bulk edit job I did checked the box on all of the phones. So let's go use, let's say, this one as an example, right? This is the one for Rachel Blue, 000011114444. Once our job is done, we should be able to go into that phone and see that the extension mobility checkbox is not checked. So let's make sure my job ran and ran clean. Okay, job is completed. Number of records processed 10, number failed 0. My log file C says that I'm setting a value. What am I setting? Extension mobility checkbox is unchecked or false. And if I go now look at my phones, And oh, let me clear this. Clear filters, find. Hey. That was strange. And if I go look for Rachel Blue's phone, that's this one right here. This is the one of the ones we changed. If I go look at that one now, I should see that the extension mobility checkbox is indeed unchecked. So that's our session. What we did today is we looked at using the bulk edit feature, like what is it, how does it work? We looked at using it to do bulk changes for phones, but noted that we could also do bulk edits on directory numbers, bulk edits on user accounts. And I showed you how to use multi-argument queries to further refine your search. And if you ever have an instance where you can't do a query, or your list is too long, or your it just random MAC addresses and you have to make a change on it, gather the MAC addresses using either a phone report or the export raw data, and generate a phone report, which is just, in the case of phones, just a list of MAC addresses. We upload that list, that gives us our query, and now you can make your change. So that is our session. Is this similar to adding a speed dial on many phones? Greg, excellent question. I'm actually going to do that in another session later on. There's actually a procedure for that. It's a whole involved thing to add a particular set of speed dials to a bunch of phones. Do I have that in here? Actually, I don't think I'm doing that in this session. That was one of those ones I was like, oh, if I have time, I'll do it. So if you want to stick around at the top of the hour, I will show you how to do that. That's a great Q&A. Is that groovy for you, or you can't hang out? Sorry, let me just bring up the chat and leave it at that. Can we get a recording of this whole session? Good question, Elaine. If you are a Next 365 member, which means that you've purchased access to our video library, all of our tech talks, including this, all of the disciplines do these quarterly, so we have oceans of these things out there. A lot of them are very practical like this, are available to our Next members. If you're not, then no. We have some of these out on our public blog sites, but not oceans of them. So I hope that answers your question. If you would like to get access to our video library, I can put you in contact with one of our account reps and they can work that out. It's like a yearly subscription. And if you buy a subscription to, let's say, the collaboration, you'd get everything. We've recorded all our classes, lab walkthroughs, the tech talks, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully that answers your question, Elaine. If not, let me know. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I'm going to call it a day. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope to see you back at another one. I'm running multiple clusters and need to move phones from one cluster to another. Yes, you can absolutely use the export import function to move phones from one cluster to another cluster. Now, the thing you have to remember is that you have to, there's a bunch of fields in a phone. Partition, calling search space, AAR calling search space, device pool, phone button template. All of the fields that exist in the phones have to exist in the new cluster or it will not import. If even one is misspelled or isn't there, the import to the new cluster will fail. But you can use your exported file from the first cluster to help figure out what fields you need to have existing or to modify them to whatever is in the new cluster. So yes, you can. I've done it myself. And by the way, you can use the bulk edit feature to do bulk delete. So once you have successfully moved the phones and they exist and they're up and they're happy in the new cluster, you can also use bulk delete to get rid of the files from the first cluster. Hopefully that's helpful. All right. Well, thank you for attending. I'm going to take a quick break until the top of the hour, and then we'll look at the bulk speed dials.